Welcome to the We Know Show. I'm your host, Renat Straloffer, and my guest today is Vincent Tolman. Welcome to the show, Vinney.
Yeah, it's awesome to be here, Renat. Really nice to meet you.
I'm going to do a little intro and then we're going to get started. In January 2003, Vincent Tolman was found dead in the bathroom of a small restaurant. He had been dead for over half an hour. When paramedics arrived, they put him in a body bag and took him away. A rookie paramedic had a feeling to risk his career, break all protocols, and try to resuscitate Vinney. Miraculously, he started Vinney's heart, and Vinney was in a coma for 3 days. Vinney remembers what happened on the other side while he was dead, and he's here to share his experience. Get ready to hear this incredible story of how Vinney died, the lessons he's learned, his visit to heaven, and how his experience has affected his life since then. You're about to hear a rare view of what awaits us all when our time on earth is done, and how to make the most of the time we have while we're still here. This is so exciting. Vinney, you died.
I did. I'm one of the few, but there's actually a lot more of us than you'd even know. There's a lot of us out there that have had these close brushes with death, but there's even less of us that have spent any time in body bags before we came back. So that one there is quite a little of us. There's not a ton of us out there. Yeah.
Well, let's start by you telling us what happened and give us a bit of a backstory.
Well, back in 2003, I was very big into bodybuilding and weightlifting, and I was using a supplement that was very, very popular back then. It was called furanone dihydro, and this supplement, it would increase your muscle recovery. So you would get essentially 72 hours of muscle recovery in 24 hours. So you could work out your arms every day, work out your chest every day, work out your legs every day instead of alternating days like a normal bodybuilder. And it was natural or natural derived. And so it was very, very popular. It was sold out at every store here in the States in the lower 48. You couldn't find it anywhere. So we decided, me and a buddy of mine, one of my best friends, we decided to go online and buy some from Thailand. And I had spent some time in Thailand. I'd lived there for a few months. And so I felt comfortable that with the food quality and that kind of thing that you get from purchased foods there. So we bought the supplement, it arrived, but what we had no idea, and because neither of us actually could read Thai script, we didn't realize that on that bottle, it was telling us it was 100% solution. And what we were buying in the United States was a 5% solution. So the United States stuff was very, very watered down and diluted. 20 times more diluted than what we bought. So, taking our normal little bottle cap of this juice, it messed us up right away. We knew it. We drove ourselves and barely made it down to a little restaurant, made it inside. I went in the bathroom, locked the door. My buddy went in and he collapsed on one of the dining booths. They called emergency services, hauled him away, and didn't realize there was someone else in the bathroom until quite a bit of time later, at least 30 to 45 minutes later, they found me, and they did, pronounce me dead. Medical services arrived, pronounced me dead, and put me in a body bag. They did attempt preliminary resuscitation a little bit, but only a little bit, and only for a couple of minutes. But they did go ahead and put me in the body bag and put me in the back of an ambulance. But meanwhile, this is a brand new medic. It's his first week on the job, and he's my miracle. He's my saving grace, because he felt God tell him, and yes, he felt God tell him that I wasn't all the way dead, that this one's not dead. So he went ahead and attempted resuscitation. At first, nothing happened. After a second round of shocks to the body, he did get one heartbeat. And then the third round of shocks to the body, he got a steady, faint heartbeat in the body. But meanwhile, I was watching everything up from above and having my own experience. And to me, it was very dissected from me, or separate from me, because me was observing up above and not actually experiencing from inside the body. I was watching from outside the body. So to me, it was, me was up here watching, and I watched all of this happen. I even watched the message get delivered. a God telling the rookie that I wasn't all the way dead. So I watched this whole process and actually didn't realize it was me until they started to turn the body into the hospital. And when they did, they were strapping it down, and I actually felt them strapping me down. And that was the first inkling I had that what I had just witnessed was my own death. And that was very, once I recognized that, and it actually hit me, that was really scary. That freaked me out. That I started to allow all sorts of dark, fearful thoughts come into my consciousness. And after I realized that I had kind of flushed myself of this dark energy, I started to feel this light energy, this love energy come from behind me. And I turned around to see, the kind of the old Hollywood version of what God looks like. Here's a white man with very pink skin, a very white long beard and longer white hair. And he's just sitting there with kind of his hands out to me. And my first thought was, oh, you must be God. And without him moving even his mouth, he answered me, no, son, I'm not God. And I knew instantly it was his voice, and I knew who he was instantly. He explained to me that he was Drake, and he was going to be my guide, and he was going to help me go wherever I wanted to go. And thus began my journey. It was a 3-day journey that my body was in that coma. And I got to go on a kind of a siesta or a break from this life, and to help any of your listeners or viewers understand what this life is. This life is the quick stop, the quick trip. This life is the pit stop. It's just a quick coming into these bodies for a quick 100 years or less, and we come into these bodies for a quick 100 years or less, and then we move on into back to our real existence. But our real existence is not this. This is just our temporary existence. And it's important for us to understand that. In the grasp of all this, we need to understand that we are eternal beings, every single one of us, and that we are here temporarily for a physical experience. And life here is absolutely a classroom and not a courtroom. No matter what our religions teach us, it's not a courtroom, it's a classroom. It's here for us to learn and for us to master creation and master our thoughts. And as we do that, we get better suited or better ready for what's next, for what comes after this life. Yeah. But that was the beginning of my experience. I got to spend 3 days essentially getting to heaven, experiencing heaven, and then being forced back right at the end of the 3 days back into my body.
All right, Vinney, we're all ready and eager to hear what you experienced when your guide took you up to heaven.
Well, the big thing that he helped me understand was that for me to go from earth to heaven, I had to not just go from the place of earth. I had to go from the understanding of earth, which to him, the way he showed it to me, is a much lower frequency, a much lower understanding. And then we're going to go towards heaven, which is a much higher understanding, a much higher frequency. And that this journey of sorts was not just going to be moving from point A to point B, but it was going to be moving from understanding A to understanding B, that I had to really raise my understanding. And he kept calling it frequency, which, I equate to energy. I had to raise my energy so that I could get to heaven. And the way he also explained it to me is if we brought a single blade of grass from heaven and brought it here in our space here, it has so much energy in it that and it's such a high frequency that to put it near something so low frequency, it would shatter it essentially. It would essentially wipe out our whole world. So for us to get there, we have to really raise our energy. And the only way to do that for me was to raise my understanding. And I was raised Christian, traditional Christian and evangelical. And I thought, hey, I already know everything I need to know to get to heaven. And my guide Drake, he kind of laughed at me, and he's like, you don't have like a fast track into heaven. Even being raised Christian, he says you're raised in a good way and in a very healthy way. But he explained that I needed to really embody the principles I'd always been taught, but I needed to embody them. So he went through these 10 principles, starting with authenticity and helping me understand that I never had been authentic in my life, except for when I was very little, before I started putting on the different kind of facets of my personality. And, most of us don't realize that as we get older, when we start out very young being truly authentically ourselves, and we start putting on a certain persona, a certain consciousness, or a certain personality, depending on who we're with, whether we're with family, whether we're with friends, whether we're at work, we're at school. We tend to put on different personalities everywhere we go. And that we need to get to a point where we are the same person, the same personality, no matter where we go. And it's hard in this life because most people that are that way, they're either very, very young or very, very old. And it's important for us to get that to that space where we are truly authentic every day. And when we are, that's where we can begin to grow. That's where we can begin to facilitate and factor growth into our being, who we are. We have to be first authentic before we can grow. So that was the first principle I was taught, was how to be authentic. And then from there, really the universe was mine. Once I could realize who I was and realize that I wasn't all these different faces and personalities that I allowed myself to become, that inside of all that, there was one being and a being that was quite a bit different than what I was putting on to the rest of the world. And so I started to embody that being, who I really was, and started to grow from there. And it's funny though, I thought the first principle would have been love, but I was told that we can't truly love until we're authentic. And for me to love anyone, I had to first be authentically me. And then secondly, I had to love myself before I could love anyone else. And so love can't happen until we're authentic. And no matter where you think we are, you are or we are in love, if we're not authentic, we can't truly embody love. Not until we are can we embody, actual real love. And that was kind of the beginning of my journey. As I went through and learned these 10 principles, it would take, days and days to go over these 10 principles, but one that really kind of strikes home for a lot of people is I was taught the balance and taught the balance of understanding energy. And part of understanding the balance of energy is to understand what is your energy vampire and what is your energy amplifier. And in this life, we have both. We have energy vampires, we have energy amplifiers. And it's very, very important that you be cognizant or aware of where your energy is. And when you need energy, you go after the amplifiers. You really seek out and consciously choose to amplify your energy in love. And that when you're recognizing also the vampires that are there, and part of that balance, part of that dance that all of us are in, is this understanding technology and how it works for us, how that technology that we use daily, because if you don't use technology daily, you're either retired or you live on another planet. Because for the way that we live in our modern day, you have to use technology, especially with work and with so many of our jobs. We have to use technology every day, but we have to learn how this technology affects us, number one. And for me, I was taught a principle called the hour of power, that whatever we put in the first half hour when we wake up, and whatever we put in the last half hour before we go to bed, that is what we are worshiping. That is what is our religion. And even if we say we are Christian or we are Buddhist or we are Hindu, or we're Islam or Muslim, if we are saying that we are these different religions, but we look at our hour of power and we're putting Twitter or Facebook or Instagram or the news or sports, we're putting all these different things in our hour of power. That's really what our religion is what we're putting there. And this isn't a judgment on anyone. This is just a wake-up call for people to recognize that what you put in your hour of power is what frames your sleeping space, and it frames your waking space. So it's very, very important that what you put there is something that can amplify your light energy, amplify your love energy. And if you really are cognizant and aware of these two factors to energy, that we can either put a vampire there or we can put an amplifier there. And when we put the amplifier there, our life literally changes in front of us. And for those who are religious, you can put religious amplifiers or light amplifiers there. For those who study scripture or study high thought or meditation or study different ways of connecting to the creator, you can put that in your hour of power. And that way you are in charge of your destiny, not your technology, and not your life is in charge of your destiny. You are in charge of your destiny. And it really puts you in the driver's seat of your life by empowering you with the ability to control your balance, your relationship with technology. And this is it was very interesting to me because this was shown to me, back in 2003 when I had my experience. And back then, technology was not nearly what it is today. We didn't have nearly the access or the programs that we have today. But it was shown to me how addicted to technology so many people will be in the future. So much so that people will be, walking around blinded by what they're holding in their hand, to the point that real miracles will be happening around them and they'll take no notice because they're so addicted to what's going on here. And as we transition to move technology from here and put it in here, we're even crossing another barrier where now it's even easier to not honor your hour of power and to allow complete access of technology into you. And, we are divine energy. We are. That's what powers us. We have a battery, a soul that is a battery. And that is very, very precious real estate or energy. And yes, there's definitely advocates of building the soul and advocates of capturing the soul. So it's important for us to recognize that we, right now, where our society is today, we are in control of this. We have the ability that we can control this. But if we play this forward even 10 or 15 years, our society will get to a point where there's no more control. It's technology is us and we are technology. And there's no such thing as hour of power anymore. It is 100%. We are marketed to, we are sold to, and we are essentially becoming and forming what we are told to become and form. And there's no growth spiritually. There's no growth physically. There's no growth energetically in this dystopian future where we don't have that agency, that ability to choose. And as beautiful as technology is, it does enslave us to an extent. And it's important that we strike a balance with it, that we honor our hour of power, and we put very preciously only important things in our hour of power. I love putting myself, my family in my hour of power. I'm a dad. I love my kids. I'm a husband. I love my wife, and I love to put my family and taking care of my family, planning for my family in my hour of power, as well as my number one connection every day. My internet is God. I plug into God before I plug into anything else. And the reason why I do is because I've struck up a relationship where I have to plug into God first. I have to plug into my creator first. before I can plug into anything else. And to me, that's more important than oxygen. That's more important than water. To me, it's just as vital as both of those to my existence here. So for me, I've really mastered that. Am I perfect at it? No way. But I strive for perfection every day to make sure that those last 30 minutes before I go to bed and the first 30 minutes when I wake up are just packed with access to my creator, access to my inner divine, my own inner divinity that all of us have, my soul, my own light, and my capacity to love and to create love with my choices and with my thoughts. But yeah, so that's part of one of the most important things I learned was mastering that hour of power for all of us.
Now, your guide, Drake, there's this beautiful relationship that I'm sure you still have, and you developed over that time period. I guess time is not really relevant when you're visiting heaven, but you talked about it being like 1,000,000 times or maybe more bigger than what we experience here on earth, and what you were shown as sort of like this grandiose explanation of earth just being sort of a smaller representation of something far more expansive that awaits. And I would love to know, firstly, what you felt in the presence of a guide. And we're going to get into how you uncovered who your guide was. But also just the experience of feeling and seeing something just so much more powerful and so much more loving, and why we have to reach that place of love, and what our guides are there for is love, right? So could you tell us more about that?
So number one, a lot of the ancient scriptures from all the different religions talk about knocking and the door shall be opened. And that's really what it's all about for us. We need to knock on God's door, knock on the Creator's door, using intention, using prayer, using meditation, and asking for that connection with Spirit, asking for that connection with our guides. They're there. It's a matter of us waking up to the fact that they're there. So every single one of us has guides, has a team of guides. Most of us have protectors or guardians that are part of that team. So there's guardian guides, there's guides that try to lead us with healthy direction and information. When we're just driving down the street and we have this gut instinct that we need to pull in to this one grocery store, and we see our long lost aunt in there, or when we're just following these gut instincts, a lot of us will call it gut instinct, and it either saves our life, or it connects us with a loved one, or it helps us, put us in a place where we can help someone else. These are all messages from our guides that we followed. It's just they got loud enough that we finally listened. And they're always there. They're always trying to give us these messages. It's a matter of knocking on God's door, using that hour of power to not be distracted by technology. And generations past, even to our grandparents' generation, a lot of those people felt a direct connection with God and Spirit. They would call it like Holy Spirit, and they would feel this message being constantly given to them. And that's what that is it's a connection to our guides. It's important for us to foster that relationship and build it and strengthen it. The more we listen to it, the stronger it gets. And the more we give it space or give it time in our day, the more that it will show up in our day. And so it is important, like anything that we prioritize, if we give it space, for instance, if we give it meditation space every day, eventually the voices get loud enough that we hear them, or we feel them, or we sense them. Everybody senses them in a different way, but they are there for all of us. Every single one of us has guides. Every single one of us has guardians. And I would even argue that or enlighten with the fact that all of us have angels as well, which all of that is a hierarchy of God's power on earth in energy form. So we have our direct guards or guardians and guides that work directly with us. And then above that, there's angels, real angels that oversee that work and oversee the work that's done with us.
So why, Vinny, do you think that your guide, Drake, came to you in that moment and gave you that experience? Like, what do you feel that it comes down to?
Well, I feel the timing of it, even though it happened in 2003, it took a very long time. It took me about 5 years before I'd share publicly my experience and my story. And then it took another 10 years on top of that before I got okay with the fact that people wanted to publish this in a book. And I got behind it and actually started helping and making it happen myself. Um, it took some time, and all of this timing is on purpose, because there is this whole team from heaven, from the spirit side, from God's side, that wants to help and direct us. And it comes at a time where there's this whole other team out there, and it's an earthly team, a worldly team, that also wants to take that position of guide and guidance for us. And we are the malleable clay in between, that we can be the clay in God's hands, or we can be the polymer in computers' hands or technology's hands. And that's where we're going with our future. Is there's going to be a select number of us that decide to just let technology take over, that the fake universe, the virtual universe, is prettier and better than this universe. So they're just going to dive right into that. And then there's going to be an elect few of us that we have woken up. We've honored our hour of power. We've maintained this connection with spirit and God. And it's those who have that connection that as time comes, we're going to be the ones that kind of lead ourselves away from this darkness and maintain the light on the earth. And the earth itself is on its own trajectory or path of waking up. The earth itself is on a path. And if we don't wake up, we're essentially not going to synchronize with the earth anymore. And our presence here is not going to be needed on earth anymore. And so it's important for us to really wake up to the call. The call is happening now. And that call is happening for a reason. And it's not scary in any way, shape, or form. All we're doing is we're rising to the light. We're waking up to the light. We're allowing inspiration, and we're opening ourselves up for inspiration. And as we embrace that inspiration regularly, it gets stronger and better and stronger and better. And there will be a future not too far off where all of us speak openly about our direct connection with God and speaking through spirit. And it becomes regular, and as the conversations about baseball or cricket, it's like every day, and no one tries to hide it anymore. That's the future that we have ahead of us.
You talked about authenticity, and there are other stages after that. Can we get into that a little bit? And also, my viewers are going to be absolutely jaw-dropping when you talk about the pearly gates. So I'd love for you to build up to that.
You got it. So it's a lot of times we get too divided on melodrama in our life, and we think that these great powers are out to just get us, and really what it is it's two teams working it's the light and the dark working to gain power over us. The light wants to have more access to us so that we can really build the light in others, and the darkness wants to have access over us to blind us and to encapsulate us and put us where they want us to be. And that's in a constant state of fear. And the reason why they want us in a constant state of fear is we're very easy to manipulate if we are fearful. But if we are not fearful, we are very hard to manipulate. So think about that. Anytime you're making an action or a decision out of fear, understand that there is some sort of manipulation going on there, that you are being played like a pawn on a chessboard, that you are being moved forward out of your fears. Whereas, when we make choices out of love, we are playing the game of chess. No one else is playing for us. Whereas when we play the game of chess out of fear, there is a fear master playing that game. And, a lot of people have a hard time with this, but there is really a Satan. There's really a devil. And it's not this, fork tongue guy with a pitchfork crying out of fire and brimstone to tear us all down. Really, it's two parts to God's ladder, that for us to learn how to grow and learn how to have agency, we had to leave God's presence. We had to. And here's the reason why. In heaven, it is so all permeating with love. The love frequency there is so strong that anything that the Creator wants, we want. That's just how it is. We all synchronize with the Creator there because it is such a strong energy. It's almost impossible to have a free, independent thought from what the Creator already wants. And we recognize that. The Creator recognized that. And the Creator opened us up for a system that we could climb down a ladder. That the Creator was going to create this ladder. We're going to call it Jacob's ladder, because that's what the Bible calls it. And this Jacob's ladder allows us the ability to move out from home, move away from home. And what happens to the kids when they move away from home? It's a real trial for those kids. They're either going to sink or swim, but they're going to either grow the most or fail the most. And sometimes it takes failing the most to grow the most. But, moving out from home is sometimes the best thing you can do for a kid to help them grow up. And that's what we did. We moved out from home because every decision was already essentially made for us. So it was important for us to get away, and we climb and we fall through a veil of forgetfulness, so that we can independently, uninfluenced, make our own decisions in the classroom, not the courtroom, in the classroom, to allow us to grow. And I equate it to like a gym, and gravity is Satan, and the light is our desire to resist that, to grow past that. And that's how we climb that ladder of Jacob's ladder, is we make our own choices to synchronize again with where the Creator is. And where is the Creator? In this vast amount of love energy. And so as we synchronize ourselves into the creation of love energy, and doing things out of love, and we can do everything we do every single day out of love if we choose to. And as we do that, we really master the power of creation, because that love is the power of creation. And that's why we're given the ability to procreate physically using love here on this physical plane. And that is just a metaphor for the power of love energetically, eternally, is we can create using love in the eternities. And so, that's what this is all about, is understanding the powers, the teams. I have Native American ancestry, and in that ancestry, we talk about the two wolves, that we get to feed the white wolf or the black wolf. And, to me, the white wolf is the top of the ladder, the love side of the ladder. And the black wolf is the fear side. Are both strong? Yes, both are very strong. But I get to choose daily who I feed. And if you look inside who is you, you have your higher self, your soul, which is your white wolf. You have your ego, your anchoring. Your anchoring here in the physical realm is your ego, or you're edging God out. That's what your ego is. And it's also important too, because without it, you're not anchored here, right? So even our black wolf is important. But what's in between that is our mind. Our mind is the slide rule. Our mind is the referee who chooses who we listen to every day. We can listen to the white wolf. We can listen to the love factor. Or we can do the same exact motion, listening to the black wolf, the dark wolf, making choices out of fear. And the difference is, when we constantly make choices out of fear, we create more fearful situations. And when we create out of choosing to love, we create more opportunities to love. And it's totally our choice. There's no judgment from God on any of this. God loves that when we're choosing good and bad. What God hates is when we don't choose. And there's even scriptures about that. Turning to lots of ancient theology, there's many scriptures about being the lukewarm, but God wants the hot or the cold. God wants the passion. And the reason why is because with passion, we're learning, we're growing. And here's the funny thing, even when I make a decision out of motivation from the dark wolf, as long as I learn from making that decision, it actually moves me towards the white wolf or the light wolf. So as long as I'm constantly learning, even my mistakes will help lead me to that ultimate love frequency, to that ability to create the love frequency. And that's the funniest part about this existence here is it's all up to us. We get to choose every single day. We can put our seatbelt on because we love preserving life. We love having the ability to feel safe in our vehicles. Or we can put our seatbelts on because we're afraid of getting in an accident. We're afraid of dying. We're afraid of getting hurt or mangled in some, car accident of some sort. So something as simple as putting your seatbelt on, your seat restraint on, something so simple as that. You can choose that action itself, something so simple. You can choose to be the white wolf or the black wolf. It's your choice. And the more you feed, the stronger the wolf. So it's important for us to feed the light, feed the love in our life. And if we don't, here's the funny thing. If we're not conscious about who we're feeding, guess who we're feeding? We're only feeding the dark wolf. So if we're not trying to feed either of them, by nature, it's just easier to feed the dark wolf. It is. And, everything is out to shape that for us. If you allow the news really into your space, if you allow constantly the media in your space, they are constantly feeding the black wolf. Because here's what happens is as you see the black wolf attacking, you stop and you look. It's almost entertaining, as sad as that is to say. It's almost entertaining to see the drama, the atrocities. And at the same right, seeing someone actively living in the white wolf, it's also entertaining. It's just the world doesn't broadcast that. You have to seek that out to find it. But the world by default is actively broadcasting the actions of the black wolf all over the world because it's easier, it's marketing, and it sells. So that's why they use it. That's why they use it. Even the once in a while you'll get one good story. It's surrounded, one little good nugget of a story in the news is surrounded by stories of the black wolf. And so it's important for us to understand that relationship. And that's why we're here. We're here to master that. But God, God the creator is not up there thinking, oh, you bad soul, you're constantly feeding the dark wolf. The creator's up there seeing us choosing and saying, oh, good, you're understanding that you are the master of your own destiny. You're the master of your own creation. And yes, if you feed the dark wolf, you get more of the dark wolf. And that's what we're here for, not to be thrown out and cast out. We're here just to be in the classroom growing. Yeah.
Charles Eisenstein, I heard him say that, and he explains that on some level, all of us have descended into this world of trouble, of evil, like you just said, of the dark wolf, of turmoil. And it was for a reason. It was to uplift this world. And he says that we're here as emissaries, we're sent on a special mission. That's what that means. And how do we know that something more beautiful than what currently exists is possible? And what he says to that is because, in a sense, we are from that world. And that's how we know for sure that it's possible. And knowing that as a soul and seeing a place where that is not being lived, not being fulfilled, that we choose to come here and do something about it. And you can't come and not experience the turmoil. We've chosen to come into this world, so we signed up for this. And when you talk about evil needing to exist, and it does exist, the duality does exist, and it will exist for choice. And we get to choose the white wolf or the dark wolf. And something that I heard you say, you talked about having these conversations with Drake, your guide, and how, we're all fingers on the same hand. And if we hurt another finger, we're hurting ourselves, essentially. And I think one thing is people cannot, and I've had these conversations with family and friends, is that there's a real disconnect of people not wanting to believe that there is evil in the world because they're not capable of evil, right? So they cannot fathom that evil even exists. Now, I'm not in that boat. I believe evil exists, and I believe that evil is capable of a great deal. But I think part of the issue is that, for me personally, I should say, is that I find it a struggle to look at certain characters and people in the world that I would classify as quite evil, and have to find in myself that feeling of being able to not disconnect and recognize that, instead of judging why these people are creating certain situations, where in my world am I being tyrannical? Where in my life am I masking up what it is that I really feel? So it brings me back to the conversation within, because I don't know that we're capable of evil to that extent that some certain characters are, but I do believe that we have it within us to ignore. And when you say that's like the worst thing that God doesn't like, that really God doesn't appreciate at all, is there was a rice experiment that was done, and it was copied throughout the world, and it went quite viral. And there was 3 jars of rice, and anyone could do this at home. And there was the one jar where people could write like love, appreciation, gratitude, and every day you'd go to that jar of rice and you would love on it, you would appreciate it. And then there was the other jar you would say really terrible things to, like you hate them and you're disgusting and all of these kinds of words. And then there was the jar that you just ignored, you gave no attention to at all. And you'd be surprised, but the jar that manifested the worst, like gunk and real disgustingness was the one you ignored, right?
Yep.
So we come from a place where, yes, we can recognize love. Lesser people can recognize, let's say, real evil. But the hardest thing for people to realize is what they're actually ignoring. And that's themselves at the end of the day, because we're all one, right? We're interconnected with this web of life. So when we choose to ignore, or just to kind of like sweep under the rug or pretend it's not happening and sing la 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 or kumbaya, whichever one you prefer, what we're actually doing is so much worse. And I think that's what you're saying, is that coming back to the creator, and this sort of like these roads that are paving, these pathways that are paving for society and for humanity right now, I do agree with you full-heartedly that we're going to be either created, we are either going to be connected to the creator and to our ancestors, in other words, to also to our bloodlines, and also to the mother earth, to nature, and we're going to go that way. Or there's going to be the human 2.0, which is, this is the evolution, this is the inner evolution we get to select right now, is where are we going? And I think that your perspective of, being, zipped up in a body bag and taken to heaven, and we're just now about to reach the pearly gates, because I think people need to really understand that evil doesn't go to some hell according to your experience, right? Evil gets this incredible love to be able to go through a shedding of their pain and their evilness, I guess you could call it, before entering the same place we all get to go to. And so let's talk about that, because I think most people expect that if you've done terrible things in your life, you're going to a terrible place. And if you do good things in your life, you will be rewarded and go to heaven. So let's go there.
Well, the funniest thing is we've all elected to go to hell. We're living in it right now. The worst that hell gets is what we're living in right now. That's as bad as of a hell. Now, just like here, what we allow in our holy temples, our sacred space, what we allow to go on in there can be even worse than what's going on here, right? So the only hell that existentially ever existed or will ever exist is what we allow inside of our mind. And I've seen people so disabled by their fears and their phobias that they can't even leave their homes. They can't even leave get in a car and go anywhere. That to me is hell. That is hell. And the blessing or the gift of this life here is that it only gets better than that. And yeah, as we approached heaven, I noticed it almost looked like a wide band of mist around heaven. And as we got closer and closer, now heaven is just vastly larger than our planet. I mean, it's vastly larger than our sun. You could fit probably 1 million suns across the inside of heaven. And it is a planet-looking sphere, but there's no outside sun shining on it because the planet itself shines. It emits light from it. And it's so full of this love, this power, that everything there glows and emits light. That's also why the colors there are very different than any color we have here, is the colors we experience here are coming as a reflection or a refraction of light, but not a version of light, an emission or an emission of light. And that's what you get there is light is actually coming from inside of everything. And as we're approaching this in this vastly huge space, I noticed that there's this big, wide, almost looks like a cloud, but it was very uniform looking around the outside of the planet. And it was very, very long and wide. It almost looked like a big, wide fashion belt around the outside of heaven. And as we got closer and closer, I'm noticing that it is more of a mist. And then I get closer and closer, and my consciousness is very inquisitive. And so I asked my guide, Drake, what is that? Is that clouds? And he again, like he did through my whole experience, he kind of smirked and said, no, but let me show you what it is. And he brought my consciousness, very close to it, so I could see that what was making up this mist was these individual orbs. And some might call them pearls or pearly gates. This gate of pearls around the outside of heaven. There's so many of them, it looks almost like a mist. But as we approached, he allowed me to see that there were these spheres of light, and that he allowed my consciousness inside one of these spheres. And I saw this gentleman from the late 1800s, maybe early 1900s. He was speaking Italian, and he was just going off on his son. And in his own mind's eye, he could see his son in front of his space, and but his son wasn't there. He was just sitting there with a few other souls inside of this sphere, and this sphere itself had an energy, and the energy of this sphere was betrayal of family. So a family betrayal of some sort either led to their death or led to their tragic suffering. And this gentleman, who looked like he was in like his 50s or 60s, was sitting there just really cussing out his son in Italian, and was just going off. And I could tell he was swearing, even though I don't speak Italian. I could understand every word that he was saying. And as he was just going off on his son, he got to the end of his sentence. Now, mind you, he'd been up there for a very long time. If there was such thing as time there, he had been up there for a very long time, maybe almost 100 years, while he was expelling this negative energy off him. Because I for sure could see him being at least around the 1880s, all the way up to maybe 1910, 1907 type era, just according to what he looked like with his clothes. And as he was getting to the end of all this tirade and tyrant of energy, expelling it out of him, he finally took this deep breath, and he's like, and then looked around. He was like, oh my God, he had no idea that he was in this space that he was in. And as he realized that he was in this protective space of light, he started to smile, but he had to cleanse himself of this negative energy first. And the second that he did, and he recognized this love energy that was all around him in the sphere, these angels came from outside the sphere all over. And then they took him into heaven, like instantly. And right after that, I got to actually see a woman experiencing the same thing, but towards her own daughter. She was feeling majorly betrayed by her own daughter. Now, this woman, I didn't feel it ended her life, but it definitely felt like a forever betrayal from your daughter, something that is a big deal. And and she was on her own path. I didn't get to see her cross fully, but I got to see the beginning of her path when my consciousness was pulled back. But I was allowed to see that that's what these pearls are. These pearly gates are an energetic gate that we enter into to cleanse ourselves of the negative energy we've allowed on us. Mostly it's victim energy. So any way we feel we've been victimized. And the crazy thing is, forgiving someone does not empower the predator at all. It only empowers us. And we sit there every day with our bottle of poison. We're going to be holding our bottle of poison of unforgiveness and say, I'm going to drink this poison every day and I hope they get sick. It's just not going to happen. The only person that ever gets sick from drinking the poison of unforgiveness is us. And I realized, from this experience, that I had to release myself. And I had very, 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 very many atrocious situations in my family caused. And I saw in myself some victimhood in many times over that I could have allowed to prevent me from getting into heaven. But seeing this all play out, I didn't lose my life. Now, I came close a couple times to losing my life, but I didn't lose my life, not to being a victim of family violence or family atrocities. And I saw in myself the ability to embrace that forgiveness, that release. And that's what forgiveness is. It's not a saying that it's okay that these things happen. It's just a release of it, to not let it affect you anymore. And that's what I did at that point. Now, what's weird is after I came back, I actually had to forgive again, because being back in the body, I started picking up some of the old habits and patterns. But in that experience, I got to see what releasing, forgiveness to the universe, to God, and to all beings within the universe, what it got you was freedom, the ability to heal, and the ability to move on. And that's what it does for us here. But that's a beautiful aspect to the pearly gates. Now, take it a whole nother layer further, though, for those that necessarily weren't victimized because they were chose to be victims, or they dramatically felt victimized by their loved ones or by anyone else. But others that actually became victims of atrocities in maybe the way that they were passed. Maybe they died in an atrocity, like maybe the 9/11 attacks, different aspects like this. In heaven itself, there's these half domes, and it looks like one of these pearly gates is split in half, and the two halves are on heaven. And there were souls going into those just to cleanse themselves of how they passed. And what's also weird is, I would say majority of the time when there's great suffering at the passing of a soul, the soul was there to watch it, but not to experience it. So the soul is removed right before the tragedy's happening, and they're watching it outside themselves, and they can remotely feel it a little bit. But what the suffering that you're seeing is the suffering of just the ego, just the body as it dies. And the suffering of the soul is just watching that happen. So the soul itself is not experiencing it firsthand. So anybody who has had a loved one that's really suffered a very tragic loss, even self-inflicted, I've seen it where the soul itself was actually removed to watch it from outside, and then later had to go through either one of the pearls or one of the half pearls in heaven to cleanse themselves of it. But the beautiful thing is God wants us all, the Creator wants us all in heaven, in the heaven space, in the home space where we are all from. And it's our home space. And the Creator wants us there, and has built a system literally out of love, that if we allow ourselves to get there, we can get there. But we do have to make our way through the system and embrace the light, embrace the love. And for those that have lived most of their life choosing the dark wolf, the fear wolf, they're going to spend the most time in those pearls. They are. And this is not a judgment thing. It's just a time thing. The more time we feed the black wolf, the longer it's gonna take to cleanse ourselves of the black wolf for us to get to heaven. And there's times where I think that for some souls, it would be easier to probably go back into life and have another round maybe, rather than spend an eternity in one of these pearls waiting to unembrace the black wolf. But again, that's not a judgment thing or a choice thing. It's just it's what's there. If people opted to do that, they have that option there. Everything that we have in heaven is 100% optional. Nothing is forced on us. Nothing at any stage is ever forced on us. It is 100% what we choose, what we embrace for ourselves. And if we don't want to be around or near a certain group or people, then we actually prevent ourselves from getting to that space of heaven where they are. And I actually saw that where there was some evangelicals, not just Christian, but even evangelical Jews and evangelical Muslims, where they wouldn't allow themselves in the full body of heaven because there was all these other faiths there that they didn't feel deserved to be there. So it's like their own ego or their own judgment that prevented them from getting close to God, because where God was were all these beings that they felt were unworthy to be there. So it's important for us to, it was taught to me as the principle of the pointed finger. And the principle of the pointed finger is, if I want to make a judgment towards another, any amount of energy of judgment that I put on that person, I'm putting the same amount of judgment energy towards God. So, 50-50. So 50% goes towards that person, 50% goes towards God. But on the flip side of pointing my finger, I have 3 times that energy pointing back towards myself. So 150 times what I can put on that other person, 3 times what I can point as judgment towards them. Energetically, I'm judging myself 3 times harder. And isn't that so true in our life, that we are our harshest judge? We are harsher than anyone outside ourselves in most cases. Narcissistic people are the exception. No, just kidding. but just know that in the principle of the pointed finger, I was shown that for us to send out negative energy, we're taking 3 times that negative energy back towards ourselves. Or we can send positive energy, send love energy, and we're granting part of that energy to God and 3 times that energy back towards ourselves. So, it's a really beautiful understanding of how energy works, sending energy out to the universe. What we send out comes back to us 3 times, whether for good or for bad. So when we feed the white wolf, it comes back 3 times. When we feed the dark wolf, it comes back to us 3 times. But it is important for us to fully embody that principle, the principle of the pointed finger. We get to be empowered by that, substantially empowered by that. Yeah.
I love that so much, Vinney. My heart seems to be racing as you were saying that. And, we talk about this as being a classroom, not a courtroom. And we're going to talk about how we've sort of been raised through, a lot of people through religion and also the education system, the rewards and punishment model. If you do good, you will be rewarded. And if you do bad, you'll be punished. And we talked about that before we hit record. And what I love about what you say is that it's almost like you have this really incredible way, Vinney, of explaining to people about the choice, right? So the choice to, even in heaven, continue learning, right? And you actually mentioned in an interview that I listened to you talk about, sort of like there's this place where you visited with Drake, and it was pure knowledge. It was this understanding that we are, even in heaven, we're still learning, and there are certain points that we can access, or certain doors I think you talked about in like these kind of educational structures where we can gain even more wisdom. And I'd like for you to help our audience understand what that was about, because when I heard you talk about that gave me, I don't know, there was just a certain feeling in my body of like, that's what I feel evolution is all about, is just continuously growing. And when we look at that as a process, then we don't have to feel like we ever have to, you know, get our final assessment, our final grade, and then like just retire, you know, like we see it as this never ending process, you know? So talk to us about that.
Well, when I did touchdown, I finally did get to heaven. I finally made it through my 10 major principles and saw the pearly gates and we got through the pearly gates and actually touched down in heaven, in a part of heaven. Now, again, heaven's huge and so vast. Where I touched down, I like to call the university, because to me, that's what it was equated to, is it was a place of learning. And people that were there were of all cultures, from our future, our past. And that's another weird thing, is I actually saw people from our future there, meaning that there is no time, that in heaven, the past, present, and future is all happening now. So I saw, you know, ancient people there. I saw, you know, current era and future era there. And as the different being would go from room to room, it would have to match a certain love frequency. And as it did, an opening just formed and they were able to come into the classroom. And it was cool because I actually saw one of these beings go up to the room and realize that their energy was a little too low. So they kind of plugged into their team, and they have a team there still. They plugged into their team, they ramped up their love energy, and then they entered the classroom. So, you know, it was a very beautiful thing to understand that there is higher knowledge, eternal knowledge, but the beauty about this knowledge is it's unencumbered, unperverted by mankind. It's true, unconditional knowledge given to us through the love of the Creator, that anything we want to learn or know, we can learn or know there. And, you know, ancient societies have talked about a school or a library. Maybe at Alexandria, that they talk about a library like this. And that's what this is, but this is the real version. And here's another beautiful aspect to this, is every single one of us has access to this space if we want it. We can, through meditation, through connecting to the Creator, you can get access to this space and you can learn. And, you know, many famous people from Earth talk about going to this learning space where all knowledge and all understanding exists. And if you do some research on Nikola Tesla, on Leonardo da Vinci, both of these gentlemen, even Madame Curie, she also talked about just divining and understanding certain things when she put out to God these questions. And that's what it's all about, is striking up that relationship with the divine, because there is a lot of answers that Wikipedia is not going to give you, and Google's not going to give you. You know, it's important that we understand that there's answers that technology can't give you, that you can get from the ultimate technology, from the Creator technology. And the Creator has all the answers, uninfluenced by manipulations and powers and money at all, and 100% divine truth. And those divine truths can lead you in a very good way. And if there's, you know, anything that you could take away from what you learned today, understand that you have keys to this. And if you're always distracted by what's on your phone, you'll never get access with your keys. But if you do, create some sacred space, specifically starting with your hour of power. Create sacred space. Allow God to show up in your life, and God shows up in your life. Spirit shows up in your life. And that will better suit you and give you those keys of activation, give you the activation of light, the activation of power to get into these spaces and learn. But the key is love. That's it. You got to get to that love frequency. Without that, if you choose for ingenuity to get there, or for modernization to get there, it'll never happen. It has to be out of love of ingenuity, love of engineering, love of modernization or modern technology. It's truly having a passionate love of life, passionate love of all things of life, that you can get access to these sacred spaces. And that, you know, there's many people that are actively accessing these spaces literally daily in our on our planet today. And you can be one too. You can join those forces to get access right away. It's just a matter of, create the space, activate the keys, and move in. Yeah.
I would imagine like that feeling of love that you felt, and it's your reference point for life, I would imagine now. But could you at least on some level explain to us, like I've heard you speak about, the flowers and the water and the grass and what that feels like in terms of the love vibration? Like, could you put it into words for our audience? It's just so profound.
So, two of the times I've felt the strongest force of love I'm a father, is the first time I held my daughter. She's now 13, so that was a while ago. But the first time I held her in my arms, I just felt this very substantial or substantive version of love. A physical substance of love was emitting off of me. And I felt that also when I first met my wife too, and I recognized a sliver of heaven coming from her. And when I held my son for the first time, he's 2 years old now, so he's pretty recent. And when I held him for the first time, I got to see a glimmer again of that same love. And that's the closest things I've seen to the love there, and the love that's just all permeating there for all of us. And even to go into transition from here to there, we embrace that love. And that love is just far greater than anything we have here. There really isn't anything that's even close to that love that's there for us. But the hardest part is if there's anything preventing us from feeling that love, it's going to be us. So if you have a hard time allowing yourself to feel love here, you're going to have a hard time allowing yourself to embrace that love there. And the best way to get what you're missing is to give what you're missing. So go out there and love others, share your life with others, serve others. And in essence, you will be giving yourself what you lack. And it goes to the principle of the pointed finger. What you need, give away, and you will receive 3 times stronger. And as we understand that principle and we embody it with love, we will embody a version of God's love here, that when we get there, it'll be easy. It'll be so easy. And I got like the sneak peek, so I didn't have to go through the traditional sense, because it was foreknown or foretold. I don't know, either way, but it was knowledge that I was going to be coming back. That's why I was allowed the access that I did. And I didn't have to go through exactly the same motions that most of us are going to have to go through when we do our final crossing to go over there. But I learned the power of love. Even to just begin my journey, I had to allow that love in and on me to cleanse me, so that I could release myself from here, from the traumas of here, to allow myself to even embrace the consciousness of there. And everything there is so beautiful. To really even grasp a single blade of grass would melt me into tears, and you and all of us into tears. Just a single blade of grass is embodied so much love. It feels like more love than this entire planet can exude in a millennia. There's just so much love there, and the whole system of heaven and the whole system of existence is built out of this love. The framework of Jacob's ladder is love, and it's all for us. It's all for us. We volunteered and wanted it, and it was built for us. And as we embrace it when we cross over, it absolutely cleanses us. And like I spoke earlier, I had a very hard upbringing, and I was able to wash away in a matter of seconds the worst atrocities that happened to me in my life. I washed away in the matter of seconds of that love. That love is just all permeating. It fills in every little gap, every little hole, and it turns us all into essentially Einsteins, because, you know, we're unencumbered by this self-judgment and these self-identifiers that we bring on ourselves, and we can really chase after our passions there, and chase after our enlightenment and our drive, our desires there, that we have no idea that we can do here too. But there it's so much easier once you're in that system of love. It's so amazing, so amazing. And again, to speak to just the grass, just experiencing the grass for the first time, it had an aroma, a sweet aroma that you could actually taste. And not only that, each blade of grass emitted a singular frequency. And to be there in this little field of grass that I was touching down in, it made a beautiful symphony of love. And every single blade of grass was singing a love song to me. And what's so beautiful about it is they were singing it to all creation. And as I plugged in and actually touched down my feet, I began to resonate, and I myself started to emit this love energy towards the grass. And it was just such a beautiful synchronistic thing. And then I got to see trees and flowers and the water. Oh my gosh, the water is so healing. And the water lovingly, you know, comes to you, the edge of who you are, and asks, do you want me and to embody you? And you say yes or no. And if you say yes, the water comes onto you, and you feel the cooling, washing power of this love, but you don't feel wet, but you feel the love of God, the love of the Creator through this water. And it's just so cleansing. And it's really funny because a lot of these religions talk about baptism, and baptism takes a whole nother meaning when you get the waters of heaven on you, and you get to embrace the waters of heaven. And it's such a freeing and beautiful thing just to even experience. And it's all there for all of us. I mean, this is like the entrance to heaven. It's not even like the big grand aspects of heaven. Just the entrance alone is just so vastly different than what we're used to here. Just so full of that love. But what I've learned since is that as I really connect to my Creator, I see that love in the eyes of strangers around me. I see that light in the actions of those around me, or the actions of my own heart as I help and serve others. And it's a really beautiful thing to realize that we are the gatekeepers to heaven every day, that we can access heaven through our kind deeds and actions, our kind thoughts, our kind prayers, our kind meditations. And we can really master that connection with heaven in embodying that energy, that love energy here. And as what we feel like we're missing, if we give that to others, we take it on threefold ourselves. It is a beautiful thing, a beautiful equation for us.
Oh, I got a bit teary then, didn't I? I think we're going to go now to the part where I believe your guide, Drake, gave you a hug, and you're going to express to us what that felt like.
Oh man, this is the hardest one to talk about.
Yeah, I don't know how I'm going to get through this without more tears, but how you knew it was time to come back, and just tell us about that story. I know your brother was involved in that as well, and bringing all that consciousness that you experienced and bringing it back into a body, into this sort of meat suit you call, you know, of a human entity. And tell us more about that experience, knowing that you were coming back.
Yeah. So, you know, during this whole experience, I was truly 3 days in heaven. I was 3 days brain dead in a coma, my physical body. And that third night that I was in the hospital in the coma, my brother came, my birth brother, my brother, he came and gave a special prayer over my body. And in this prayer, he began to say the prayer. And as he did, where I was in heaven, I was standing next to Drake. I actually started to hear the prayer in my own ear. I heard it loud and clear as day. I heard my brother's words of the whole prayer to the very end until he said amen. And as he was going through this prayer, he blessed that my body would be made whole, that I would be allowed to come back again. And when he was done giving that prayer, he essentially, with the love he had for me, which I actually didn't know he had for me, with the love he had for me, he essentially lovingly removed my agency. He overpowered the love I had for heaven, the love I had for this amazing space. And divine destiny stepped in with this distinct love-given prayer, or blessing, if you want to call it that, that forced me back into my body. And as this was coming to an end, Drake, my guide, he gathered me close. And you have to realize, like, where I'm at this space, I'm just so in awe of all this love for me that I didn't necessarily feel I deserved. And I was shown that all of us have this, whether we feel we deserve it or not. We all are just given this tremendous amount of love. And Drake brought me in close, and he gave me this hug. And this hug that we get to do there, it's very different than here, because there we're such high vibrational beings. We're physical there. We are physical there, but we're high vibrational. We came together as one and hugged. And this is more beautiful than anything we have here. As we came together and hugged, our energy together became 4 times brighter than what our energies were apart. And almost like a quasar, a pulsar, this big pulse of energy, 4 times what was in either of us, came out of us as we hugged. And as he hugged me, he said, "Vinney, this is going to be very hard, but it's going to be worth it." And that was the last thing I heard from him. The next thing I recognized was just this feeling of suffocation. And later I was given to see what it's like for the spirit to go back in the body. And it would be like taking a blue whale and putting it in a can of sardines. That's what it felt like. It felt like taking this huge, vast energy and just impacting it down into this meat suit, this suit of flesh. So when I woke up, I was in the hospital. I woke up awake, fully awake. There was tubes. If you go look at the back of my book, I have a picture of me on life support. All these tubes coming out of me, I yanked all of them off. The diodes, the sensors, everything. I had IVs in both arms. I yanked everything out. I even had a catheter in, and I yanked that out. It just didn't matter. I did not want anything touching me. And I just felt like I felt like I was going to explode. Like I didn't understand it. I felt so claustrophobic. I felt like I wanted to almost like take my skin off. And as I just stood there, I got out of the bed. I even unplugged all the sensors, all the equipment. They were ringing all these bells. I just unplugged it all because I don't know. I just didn't even want the noise of it. And I stood there and I just took these deep breaths. And I remember taking these 3 deep breaths and hearing again, it's going to be worth it. But at this moment, I had passed back through that veil. And so I had forgotten my whole experience. And I didn't have any of that knowledge of what just happened to me until the day following. The day following, it all came back to me, and I remembered everything. But it was so hard. And it's probably a good thing that I didn't remember right away, because I probably would have jumped out of the window or done something to just send me right back. Because that was the hardest part about dying, was coming back. And I don't mean like therapy, because I was fine. I was completely fine. I checked myself out. They made me sign a whole phone book worth of paperwork, more than 40 pages of paperwork, liability releases, and neurology checkoffs, and cardiology checkoffs, and respiratory checkoffs, and all these checkoff lists, these punch lists that I had to get all signed off on for me to leave. It took me 7 hours. So 6 to 7 hours for them to get through all the paperwork to allow me to release myself on my own recognizance. I did have to have someone pick me up, but I had my dad pick me up, and I left the hospital that very next morning after my third night in the hospital in a coma. I left the very next morning at about 1. In fact, I woke up at 1:11 in the morning. That's what time I woke up. I became conscious. All my equipment went flatline right then because I just yanked it off. And then I left around 7:30 a.m. When my dad finally got there, and all the paperwork was signed, and we left. So it was quite an ordeal. And a day later, my sister cornered me, and she wanted to know if I had an experience, if I went towards the light, or if I saw any of my ancestors. And at the time, I didn't know who Drake was, so I couldn't say yes. And actually, I couldn't remember anything until she asked me this. And when she asked me, I went to form the words, no, I didn't see anything. But as I went to form those words, my whole experience just dumped out of me. And I became a puddle of tears. I started to cry, to weep. And I'm a pretty tough guy, and I was even tougher then. And I wept like a little baby. I couldn't talk about it. It took me days before I could talk to anyone about it. In fact, it was almost 2 months later when I met my fiance, who became my wife, that I first started to open up to anybody, fully open up about my experience. She was the first one. And every time I did, she would tell me I needed to share it with others. And so I would share it with family and share it with those who I felt kind of a calling to share it with. And over the years, I've gotten okay with sharing it with the public, and I've shared most of it with the public. But there's still even parts that I hold back, that there will be a time that I feel that will be okay to even bring those parts forward. But I think our earth has to get a lot better at understanding our energy and honoring our energy a lot better before they're ready for what else I saw there, and what else I experienced. And it is a beautiful, beautiful thing that is out there for all of us. And no matter, how good or bad life is here on earth, or our existence here on earth is or ends up being, we get to plug back into the system of love, that even if we failed, we still have already won the race. We still get the ultimate of ultimate participation awards. The system was already built for us as winners. The fact that we are here, we are already winning. And really the whole universe is very interested in what's going on here, because what's going on here is a culmination of life on all the other existences that there are. And we are the melting pot of all the DNAs of creation. And that's why it's so focused on what's going on here. They really want to know what happens when you put all of us together in one being. And that's what humankind is we are the spiritual or DNA conglomerate. We're the gathering of all these different energies from all over the different known and unknown worlds. And it's, the energy of it is, everybody's very interested in what we do with this freedom and this ability to create, and have the ability to create our own destiny and create our own universe with how we live here in this virtual reality. We literally get to create our daily universe with our choices and with our thoughts. And everybody's very interested in that. All of them are very interested in that.
Vinney, tell us about how you went to visit your grandmother and how you discovered who Drake was.
That was really a neat experience. So all of this happened in January. my death happened in January. I came back, and a few months later in April, I met my fiance, and we got engaged right after we met. And we had set a date for August, that very first August that we were even knowing each other. And the month before we got married, almost a month to the day before we got married, we got the opportunity to go to this little town in Wyoming in the United States, this little town called Afton, Wyoming. It's one of the only elkhorn arches that they have in the state. They have two elkhorn arches, one in Afton, one in Jackson Hole. So it's over near Jackson Hole. And I go to this town for a little reunion, a little family reunion. And while I'm there, we go to a high school and watch the high school drama and presentation locally of the history of this town, the history of the valley, and the history of the state. And they're showing on a movie screen in the middle of a football field, in the middle of a gridiron field. They show this slideshow of many of the founders of the town. And one of the first clergy for this town was this gentleman that I was being me. I was not even paying attention. But Andrea, my wife, she was looking up at this screen, and I had described so many times what Drake looked like to me, that when she saw the picture of this man, she grabbed my shoulder and said, "That's him. I know that's him." And I remember I was just like reaching down, and I turned to look. And when I turned to look, I froze. I couldn't say a word. And she knew from the way I reacted that was him. That was my guide. And the hardest part for me was this whole time I was thinking, I could still think, "You're crazy. This is all a delusion. None of it's real. You made this all up in your head." And the second I'm sitting there watching this man, this real man, flesh and blood from earth, he's my guide. And that's the first really strong reconciling I had to have, that what I experienced was a real experience, that it wasn't a delusion, that I couldn't believe what the neurologist wanted to tell me. Because a brain dead brain doesn't make delusions. And here I am seeing the physical manifestation of my guide. Now, here was the hiccup though. Under his name, it said CHZ, short for Charles. And then it said Kazare with a D initial in the middle. And so later I get to see my grandmother the very next day. I go to her and I say, "Grandma, do you know anything about a Charles Kazare?" Because I knew that's what the name said on the slide. And she goes to me, she goes, "Oh, you mean great grandpa Drake? I could tell you lots of stories about great grandpa Drake." And that was another reconciling for me, another confirmation that what I had experienced was a real thing, that this was a real concerted effort to help me on my journey to heaven. But not just that, it was now helping me on my journey back, and my journey to build a new life in a new world, a world that made completely different sense than it ever did before. Now, the blessing of life is, this all happened in July. I got married in August. I moved up to Alaska for a couple of months. I was in construction. So I had to move up there for a construction project. When I got done with that project, it was before I even came back to the States, to the lower 48. I got a call from my family, and they asked if I'd be willing, since I work construction and I could work really anywhere that I wanted to pick up a project, would I be willing to move to Wyoming to take care of my grandmother? That she didn't want to go into a home, and she didn't want to go into anybody else's home. She wanted to stay in her home, and it would require that two people go there and live and take care of her. And so, it was a no-brainer for me. Before my experience, I would have said, hell no. But after my experience, I said, hell yeah. For my family, I'm going to do it. And the blessing and the beauty of it, this amazing angel that was by my side, Andrea, she said yes before I could say yes. She said, of course, it's family. We're going to do that. So we did. We moved there. We upped, as newlyweds. We hardly knew each other. We had just met that previous April. And here we are in October, moving to Wyoming, to my grandmother's house, her little house there. And as we're taking care of her, we're going through a lot of her old documents and helping her kind of purge her filing cabinets and clean things up. And we come to this folder that says Charles Drake Kazare. And we open it up. And there's this special prayer about him and his existence. And only 2 paragraphs of this prayer talk about his life here. But I'm telling you, a page and a half was what church leaders gave to him as a special blessing. A page and a half of foretelling of what he was going to do on the other side of life. And one of his main objectives was to be a guide and an escort for loved ones and those who needed it, so that they could get where they wanted to go. Exactly how he put it to me. So they can go where they want to go. They can get where they want to go. And here it was. This was the 3rd confirmation for me with him. First, it was just seeing him. Second was my grandmother recognizing, even though she didn't meet him, she knew of all the stories of him. He was kind of famous in her family. And she knew a lot about him. But that was the 2nd confirmation. And then the 3rd confirmation was reading this very special prayer or blessing that was given to him. And it was given to him as not a formal thing. It was just given to him as he needed some divination, some blessings from some of the clergy. And so they recorded this prayer given to him. And it really laid out almost like a map of what he was going to do in the next life, in the eternities, and in the afterlife. I shouldn't say the next life, the afterlife, what he was going to do. And that was my 3rd confirmation. Now, since I've had so many, there's been times where God is flat out telling me, you need to stop, you need to help those people. And I do it. Do I do it every time? No, but I try every time that I can. And there's been many times where I shrug it off. My ego shrugs it off. And my angel, my wife, she'll say, no, you're going to go help those people. I got the same message you did. And we both go help them. And there's been many miracles I've watched in my life. I occasionally will ask my guides, my team, who needs me today? And they always give me a very distinct name every time. And every time I reach out to that person, it's given me the blessing of the pointed finger, where any love I can give to them, I get 3 times the love back towards myself. And that's what this is all about. You guys, this whole life is about us not wasting the opportunity to care and take care of each other. It's so important for us to take care of each other and take care of our planet and take care of the animals and the plants on this planet, to really be good stewards of everything we've been given. And just because we don't have a piece of paper that says we own the earth doesn't mean that we don't own the earth. We all own this earth. The fact that we are here means that our name is on the title of this planet, and it's important that we take care of it, because this planet wants to take care of us and has taken care of us and will continue to take care of us. And in essence, in effigy, our families are like the planet. We need to take care of our families, both immediate family and extended family. We need to take care of them the way that we would take care of our planet too. And if we can do that, if we can really be a deposit of love out in the universe, we're going to get 3 times that love back. And that's a fact. That's just a fact of the system that we are existing in, that if we can go out and deposit that love in others, we will get 3 times that love back in our own life. And sometimes we have to be a little patient to see it, but it'll be there. It'll show up every time, as long as we're open to see it. And yeah, my experience of understanding who Drake was, turns out he was my great, great, great great grandfather on my grandmother's side, and kind of a hero of her family. And he had done a lot of great things for the state of Wyoming, and for the church that he belonged to, and for so many things he had been able to do for mankind and for our family. I really am grateful, not just for the Drake I get access to, which I feel really blessed to get access to him, but I'm so grateful for the man that he was in this life too, because it took him making a lot of good choices here to serve as an example to me of trying to make good choices for myself and for my own family. Yeah. Sorry, that was probably a long-winded answer.
Oh, that was beautiful, Vinney. It was so heartfelt. Do you feel that now you have like a heightened sense of energy, sort of that feeling that you can, I guess, connect to that place easier as a result of having been there? I mean, do you have a sense of, let's say, your guides, or like what is it now that you can sort of feel and understand in a way that is far more profound, having had that experience?
So I physically plug in. So I physically plug into the spirit space. Do I do it every day, all day? No. But for me, it's very much like, if you ever driven a bumper car, the electric bumper cars, how they have the rod that comes out the back and it plugs in and it just scrapes the ceiling and it like sparks. It's kind of like that. It feels very much like that on an energetic level. There's an essence of who I am energetically that releases from the backside of me and angles up into the spirit space. And if it's almost like a plug, it's like an etherical plug. And what that does is it allows me to really plug into the spirit space. But here's how to turn it on, is to be in the love space. So when I'm in the love space, even if I'm not feeling very good, or there's drama going on around me, if I can still create a barrier using my mind, using my own energy and my own guides, put myself in the love space, I can plug in. And then from there, I'm plugged into my own guides, my own team. And then through them, I can plug into and really anything and anybody, using love and agency. There was a time, there's been many, many times where I'm just plugged in and someone says, hey, can you get a message to so-and-so? And so-and-so, I get them a message, and then they, like, for instance, one time we were waiting in front of a church for my daughter to come out from this activity that was going on in there. And my buddy, who was waiting there patiently, he says, well, aren't you going to call her? And I'm like, no, I just sent her a message. And he's like, yeah, but you didn't even pick up your phone. And I'm like, yeah, I use the spirit net, which is stronger than cell phone networks. And he was like, whatever, you're crazy. And about 90 seconds later, there's a knock on my back window, and it's my daughter. I roll down the window and she's like, is it time to go now? I got the message that it's time to go. I'm like, yeah, you got the right message. So, she was in a love space, which I knew she was. She was with her friends having fun. And I was in a love space. And so we were able to get that message quicker than sending her a text. Because sometimes sending them a text message, they're not even going to look at the phone or read the text message, and all of us we're all plugged into that network of life energy, love energy. And it's better than the internet, because that's also where we can divine truth and we can bring forth understanding. But we really have to get ourselves in that love space, though. So, putting yourself in the love space, getting yourself there and keeping yourself there, that is what gives you the keys or the access to that spirit, that, all knowledge, all understanding type space. But yeah, I definitely am more aware and more understanding. I know things that I'm not supposed to know, not in scary ways, but in good, healthy ways, where if someone needs help and I know they need help, I know most times when they're in my immediate network that they need help, and I can reach in and help them. Has it been foolproof? Not at all. I've had friends that have committed suicide and I didn't get the message, but at the same time we were in distant spaces, and I wasn't being in a love space, and neither were they. And so there was not that facilitation for communication. And but since then, some of those friends that have had that happen to them, I've really loved the relationship I have with them now, and they're part of my team and some of my guides, that they really love facilitating that as well, where they can help bless the lives of those of us here in being an influencer of light, bringing the influence of light in our daily lives. And it's so opposite of what they felt was going on in their life, before they had their experience. So yeah, it's definitely something that is not perfect, but even modern technology is not perfect either. That we have to charge our batteries, we have to turn on, we have to get a good signal. There's so much to modern technology. We are the same. We need to get our energy turned on. We need to get in the right signal or the right love space, and then we need to connect. And that's how we are too. Every single one of us can connect to the love space, the creator space. It's up to us though. And what does it is we need to knock. First, we need to go and knock on that door. We need to ask. How do we ask? We use intention. And for those who pray, you can use prayer. For those who meditate, you can use meditation. But first ask, and the door will be opened. And I don't care your faith. I don't care your religion. Ask and it will be open. And that's where the relationship begins, is first ask. Go to a loving space and ask. Send a loving energy out. You're going to get a loving energy back threefold. And that's the mastering of this life, is really understanding that principle of everything breaks down to energy, everything. So choose to feed the white wolf, choose to feed the love energy, and you will fundamentally transform your life in really good ways.
Whew. Wow. I feel like it at the end of most interviews, I say, do you have any final words of wisdom? But I feel the whole episode has been words of wisdom. But I guess I would close on this question before we give our audience where to find you and more information. But what came to me now, Vinney, is how I'm going to try to get through this without crying. How do we navigate ourselves towards a life that is truly lived?
So remember this, that when you're walking the two dogs, okay? And if you're constantly feeding the white wolf, you're going to go in the direction of the light, the love. But if you're constantly feeding both, you're going to be constantly torn to pieces. You're going to be constantly pulled in opposite directions. And that's where we have the chaos. That's where we have the anxiety of modern day, is because we are feeding the white wolf, but we're making sure that the black wolf doesn't miss a meal. And so it's really, really important for us to understand that even in the worst case scenario, when there's transition of life all around us, and that's one way of saying death, when there's death all around us, because that's what people fear the most, is death. But once you take that off the table for yourself, don't fear death. You're not going to die one day sooner than you're supposed to. You're not going to die one day later than you're supposed to. I mean, do your best, live your healthiest life, but don't think that somehow you're going to magically extend your life any further than what is already distinct and patterned into your destiny. So understand that, and love your life. Love every single day of it. Feed the white wolf as often as you can. And when you notice, oh, I threw a nugget to the black wolf, recognize for every little nugget you throw to the black wolf, you're getting 3 times the influence. So turn away from the darkness, turn away from the black wolf. Life is going to feed it on its own. You don't have to actively try. Life will feed it. Let that be what it is. Turn towards the love, turn towards the white wolf, and feed it as often as you can. And how do you feed it? Start being very active with your thought process and recognize things that build light in you. recognize the things that are positive influences over you and write them down. Like text yourself. When you get a really good video, you get a really good movie, or you get a really good anything that's influencing you, text it to yourself or write it down. And now use that as your short list of getting the light and feeding the light in you. And then go one step further. When you need the light the most, go and give that light to others. Because in doing so, you're giving yourself 3 times what you could ever give anyone else. You are. And that's very, very powerful, very powerful. That you need the most, give to others, and you will receive threefold. So if you're depressed, you're feeling a lack of happiness, go make other people happy. And what will it do for you? It will make you 3 times happier than you could have been before. And that's the magic of it. There's no secret weapon. It's just waking up to the fact that you are the master of your own destiny. Too many people put their destiny in other people's hands, and that's not the case. You are the master of your own destiny. Recognize that the biggest leverage anyone can put on you, which is death, the biggest fear that people have is death. Remove that. Know that what comes is a beautiful, amazing thing, and that one day when it comes, you're the lucky one. The ones that are hard up are the ones that are left behind, those who survive. Because I can unequivocally tell you, it's those who get to cross that get the good stuff. It's those who survive, who don't cross, that are stuck holding the bag, stuck holding life without that person there. And that is tough. Losing my own mother and losing very close friends in my life, I can, even with the experience I have, left holding the bag is the hardest job. So we don't need to fear death ourselves, but we need to really go out and look for the opportunity to serve and love each other, because that's where we're going to find the light. That's where we're going to find the best food for the white wolf, is going out there and actively searching to love and care about others.
Thank you, Vinney, for sharing your light and for sharing your story. It's been absolutely a roller coaster of emotions to feel the energy of what you're sending out. And it's so profound, because on so many levels, the last few years, so many people have spent questioning life and questioning death. And I couldn't have picked a more timely interview in terms of having this conversation with you. And I really want people to know where they can support your work and find more information, and tell us a little bit more of where they can start to follow and support you.
Yeah, absolutely. I have my own website, which is called livinggodslight.com. Again, that's livinggodslight.com. I do have a book called The Light After Death, My Journey to Heaven and Back. That's on Amazon, on Kindle, on Audible. International, it's on Kindle and Audible. But in the United States, the lower 48, it is on Amazon. If you really want to get a copy in Australia, you can actually reach out. There's a messaging process. And we just quote you what the standard rate to Australia is, or to the international, whatever you'd like to send. The rate's the same essentially if you're sending less than 5 books. So up to 5 books is the same, essentially the same shipping rate. But I'll tell you, we eventually will have international distribution. But for now, this is the best path for us. We're pretty new to this, so we just barely released in August, and we're having a hard time keeping up right now with demand on it. And eventually we'll get to a point where we've mastered that and we're in front of the demand. So yeah, that's why I do love the Kindle and the Audible version. It's accessible and available to anybody. I did read the Audible, so I have to apologize for that part, but we were going to try it with a professional reader, and they heard me read it and they're like, no, it's good enough. So I was like, okay. And so it is me reading it, but other than that apology, it's a pretty good book. I will tell you, being the one who experienced it, it took a lot to be able to put into human words an experience that words can't describe. And that process took years for us to get down so that I can honor my experience. It was really, really important for me to honor my experience and not let it be mutated into something that it wasn't. And so I feel that we've done a very good job with that. It's not a very long book, but we've kept it very clean and about the point of my experience. And we are working on a book 2 that is a workbook that kind of helps people embody the 10 principles too. So that's it. So Kindle and Audible for international on The Light After Death. And then my own website, Living God's Light. They can connect to me. They can connect to my community. And we are building a community of light so that we can, start fostering organization into building light in others and serving others and caring about others internationally. Yeah.
Love it. Thank you so much, Vinney, for all you do, all your work and who you are, and for sharing such incredible insights into who we all are and where we all end up, which is just so potent, so beautiful. Thank you, Vinney.
Well, thank you very much. And it's been an absolute pleasure to chat with you today, and maybe we'll chat again in the future.
Love to. I'd love to do a Q&A with my audience at some point. So thank you.
Sure. That'd be fun. Thanks, Renat. Thanks so much. And God bless you and your audience and all that you're doing. I really appreciate the light workers out there, and I definitely know that you're one of them. So keep doing what you're doing. Yeah.
Thank you.